April, the loveologist, she's got a lesson or two.
Lovebirds, welcome to the Private Lovebird Lounge. Yes, I'm April and I'm your favorite loveologist, and I'm the president and CEO at Authentic Love, where interracial dating is our number one priority. Today, we are again with the fabulous Dr. Sonya LaRae, and we are going to talk about dating with a disability, something we both have quite a bit of experience with. And I'm going to pause here and allow her to introduce herself, and then we're going to come back and get this topic kicking.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sonya LaRae. I'm a luxury lifestyle architect that specializes in aligning C-suite executives, high-performing um, performing lives through lifestyle counseling, fashion psychology, and naturopathic wellness. And I'm always so excited to come in here and to partner with the great April, the loveologist, and also to bring such dynamic discussions to light. I think it's important for us to do that.
Yes, and as you know, there is no topic that is just too embarrassing or too tough for me to talk about. So, yes, I love the dynamic topics and the topics that other people are not discussing. So, let's start with this. According to ablesingles.com, recent data from the U.S. Census Bureau and National Health Surveys indicate that 58% of disabled women are currently unpartnered or single. So, you know what that says to me? That says that 42% of disabled women are actually in relationships. Now, just because you have a disability, or maybe you didn't have a disability and suddenly you have one, that does not mean that you have to just stop living your life and stop enjoying romantic relationships. So, one of the things that I want to talk about today is how you feel about how we felt, shall I say, when we found that we were disabled, and also how soon in a relationship do you think someone should express their disability to a person that they are dating, especially if their disability is not visible to the person? Talk to me about that.
Well, I think one fact that we really have to set clear with that, what you just said, is really setting the table this way that your disability is part of your life. It's not your entire identity. And literally, our healthiest relationships begin when we understand that our disability is one aspect of who we are, and your value, your humor, your intelligence, your compassion, your ambitions are equally important. And when we define ourselves only by our disability, we intentionally invite others to do the same. And I think that's the easiest way for me to say that because a lot of times what happens, you are maybe insecure about that disability where that other person, it's not that issue. It doesn't, they don't see that. They see the quality of who you are.
Yes, they do see the quality of who you are. And that's one thing that I always tell you ladies, is because we're always talking about dating interracially or interculturally. You live in a glass house. So, honey, the men are visual and they are going to check what they want to check and they like what they like. So, if you present yourself as a way that is appealing to a gentleman, he's going to check you. And yes, they are bold enough to ask you out. A lot of people are unaware that there is a huge, very huge subculture of people who are married. One or both of them has one or more disabilities, and people that are also dating in the same situation, or possibly just one person has the disability. So when it comes to us being self-conscious, don't be concerned about that. And the thing is, you have a disability. We know how humanity is about that. So I'm just not going to say it softly. Um, Rejection is going to come. You're going to come across somebody who's going to say something, they're going to do something with their face or whatever. It's going to happen. But here's the thing, the way you handle your disability, your confidence in you and what you do, and knowing your limitations, that's what's going to make it. That's the thing that's going to attract that guy. So we can't allow people's faces and whatever they're doing to affect us. That's their problem. Be you, do you, and go ahead and attract the love of your life, or shall I say, your forever partner.
You know,
So go ahead.
I'm sorry. I love what you said about that with regards to rejection, because a lot of times past rejections don't predict your future relationships. You know, many people with disabilities, they can carry painful memories of being overlooked, rejected, or even underestimated at times. But those experiences are real, and every new relationship deserves the opportunity to really stand a test of its own and to really be in that space of introspection instead of paying for someone else's mistakes or to carry that burden from someone else's rejection or overlooking or short-sighted view of certain things. So it's important that, you know, we put that in the right context because pain is something that has to be addressed correctly, and no matter what the relationship is, if it's with someone who doesn't have a disability to someone who has a disability, rejection is real. But it cannot be that it predicts or it sets the tone for the future relationships.
So tell us about how you ended up with a, I'm going to call it temporary disability.
It
Tell us
was so
about,
temporary that it was 5 years, 5.5 years at that.
tell us. So that's what I wanted to talk about next is what qualifies us to be able to talk about this. And yeah, go ahead.
So literally, so many people have heard my story because I've given it on large platforms, really speaking into I was down, but I wasn't out. And I went in, prior to me becoming a luxury lifestyle architect, I had a different kind of lifestyle, different kind of life period. I was in the music industry. I had a beautiful musical career, and things were happening so quickly for me, and ended up that I went in for what they say is a minor procedure and went in, and lo and behold, the resident didn't wait for his attending and ended up paralyzing me, entered my spinal cord incorrectly, and I ended up being paralyzed. And when I first came through, I was a paraplegic. I was literally paralyzed from my head down to my toes. And within literally about a year of being in the wheelchair, I started to get feeling in the top part of my body. And I spent 5.5 years in a wheelchair. And I have to tell you all that never never stopped Sonya from being Sonya. It never stopped Sonya from showing up as Sonya as well. And I think a large part of when you're talking about dating with a disability, you have to be secure in that space and place. And I will tell you all this because of never being disabled in my life, never having challenges in that way in my life at all, it did require getting used to the new circumference that I had. Because let me just tell you all, I'm a tall woman. April will testify to this. I'm literally almost 5 foot 8 inches, and in heels, I'm a 6 footer. So literally now going from that height down to a seated position where I'm basically looking at most people at waist length, you know, it was an adjustment for me. So the only adjustment I had to really make was not to feel that I was in the way because I had a wheelchair, because I wasn't used to walking in or rolling into a space and place that had to adjust for me. And I think that is one thing that I had to overcome is that part. But as far as it goes, the feeling of who I am, loving who I am, and being that bold energy, that never changed.
You know, that's something I had to get used to as well because, you know, I had just started back to dating or shall I say, being open to dating after being single for 30 years. And the first thing I thought, well, let me just explain how my disability came about too, is that I was in a car wreck and my hip was broke. So that left me walking with a walker first. And the thing is, I was like, these guys, they are going to see this walker first. They're going to, and then even when I shifted into the cane, it was still, that's all they see. That's what was going on in my head. But what broke that for me was I came out of physical therapy, and the guy that picked me up, two physical therapy visits in a row, decided he wanted to let me know that he was interested in dating me in his little calm way. And that just kind of broke it. In addition to, I had been watching some people on YouTube, and I was like, wow, they are such a great couple. The guy was in a wheelchair. You probably have watched Cole and Charisma. He's in a wheelchair. I even watched them get married, and um, those things kind of broke me down, I guess, and made me stop being concerned about that. One of the things I learned on this path too was just simply to know my limitations, where I could go or how far I could walk, and to take supplies that I needed to be prepared.
Yeah. I love that because a lot of times when we look into this space and place and we're really talking into disability, I think the biggest part of it is that you don't want to assume someone will eventually leave. You know, one of the quickest ways to really sabotage a relationship is constantly expecting that abandonment. Or this sounds like, I know you'll leave eventually. You deserve someone better. I know this won't last. That's really kind of in that space and place that these statements create like emotional distance instead of intimacy. And I think when people are in this space and we're talking about dating with disabilities, you have to be honest about that concept of where you sit in that space because a part of you may even have felt abandoned by the disability or by what has happened to you because there's certain aspects of yourself that maybe you lost. The freedom of being free to just move whenever you want or go whenever you want is a challenge. And I know as well as April knows that how that is too, because it was so funny when I first got into my wheelchair, I was constantly excusing myself. Oh, excuse me, excuse me. And one day, inside of the rehab center, one of the doctors heard me excusing myself, and he said, "No, stop that." He said, "There is no reason for you to excuse yourself because you have the right to be here and they need to excuse themselves because we as people need to realize that there's also a way that we need to look down so we can see who or what." He said, because there's also children that are walking that should not be expected to excuse themselves in a space that they belong. And a lot of times it requires that mental recheck for us to do.
One of the things I had to do is I had to start challenging myself to go out. Now, you want to talk about being a minority. How about you step up into a place with your walker or your cane where you're definitely not expected? We could even start with the gym. And I step up in there in my walker. But one of the things too that has helped me a lot with that is that you had taught me how to put on makeup. And the thing is that I was feeling confident. I knew I was looking cute. And so here I am, a Black woman with a walker. They can't tell if I'm just old from the gray or if it's because of injury. And I go into places or I go to parties or I go to events, and it just it just became a different feeling and confidence and conquering things. And so these are things that we do that will help us to get through dating with the disability. It's actually not as tough as you would expect it to be. Sometimes you have to just plan and think about what your limitations are. I know I have to think about how far things are, how far I may have to walk. And so that is one of the other things that can help you be successful when you're dating with a disability. Because remember, the dudes have already checked you out and they like what they see, so they're going to come.
I love that because in all honesty, I will tell you all this is that even though I was in my wheelchair, how you see me today looking like this is how I look in my chair. I always made it a mission on my end, and I even have pictures, and people laugh all the time that in my wheelchair I had stilettos on, even though my therapist and all of my doctors were like, "Oh, you should wear your sneakers." And I'm thinking to myself, why? It's not like my feet hurt. I mean, a woman who could wear any shoe was in her little head that she would like to try on because you can't feel your feet. It wasn't like my feet were going to hurt. So why not look fabulous wearing these shoes, sitting in this chair? And I had so many people that were just taken by how I looked, how I presented myself, my hair, my makeup, having my heels on, my jewelry. And I think because a lot of it is that you have to decide how you want to present yourself, of not allowing this to dictate it. So for me, I decided to show up like Sonya, how Sonya always does in her life by being put together, always having my makeup on, not having my hair all over my head. Now, trust me, because this can have a zip code and a life of its own. It's beautiful tied up, but let it out, it's something else. But ended up that my now mate, my husband, um, literally saw all those qualities of who I was as the person that I am, not anything superficial, not the look, not the clothes, the everything, but what was radiating from here was the genuine sense of who I am. And so I say that you don't need to allow someone to decide what they can handle. Sometimes people with disabilities decide for their partners, and you think that they won't want to do this, or they don't understand, or this is too much for them. But literally, healthy relationships allow the other person the dignity of making their own choices instead of assuming their limits. And that's something that I think a lot of people in different spaces, and I have to tell you, that is one thing that even if you're dating regular, you need to understand that as well. You don't have a disability or you don't have any limitations, this is an area that presses in on every standpoint of life, and especially when you're dealing with challenges.
We as women who are leaders, we're used to doing things. We're used to telling people things and they just simply do it. And we're not necessarily used to people helping us or doing things for us. But this, and another thing too, is in any relationship, good communication is required. So when you are dating with a disability, you've got to communicate with that person, and you also need to tell them what you need. Because if they don't know what you need, you you may find yourself struggling unnecessarily, or they're confused about you. You can actually implode your relationship because you're not communicating and you're not allowing them to help. And so for me, one of the things I had to do, especially now that I'm dating a gentleman who actually really cares for me, I had to chill and just let him do things. And we have had so many conversations about my disability, but I discovered also that he has one too. And so we have communicated and we work our relationship around what the disabilities or the limitations are. And this is a very, very important piece of this dating with a disability.
And when you say that, April, go along with that is because vulnerability builds trust. So trying to like just appear completely independent all the time can actually make emotional connections harder. And it
Mhm.
actually can limit that relationship where it could blossom, but it starts to choke out the roots instead. So strength includes knowing when to say, I have a difficult day, or I could use your support in this way, or I appreciate your help. And because of it being on both sides of the table, I think that grace that is given is what is so valuable because, you know, literal communication is a skill. Communication is a skill. And in a space and place that you're building on a relationship in this space and place, it requires that vulnerability. So it becomes that it reverberates at a higher decimal, that people can connect with each other in a different way. One of the biggest things I can say is that even in the space and place of being in a wheelchair, trying to learn how to walk again, my my best friend, who is my husband, literally um, was there even in the most challenging of situations of really trying to learn how to walk again and being harnessed in. And one day that the harness let go, and thank goodness I'm a swimmer, I ended up, face down in the pool, but you are not able to turn yourself or flip yourself or something. But even the willingness of him who is not a swimmer to jump in and save the person that they care about was a huge asset to me as well. And then to move that forward, that he just said that he didn't care if I could walk down the aisle or not. He had made a plan that he was going to get a wheelchair and he was going to come down that aisle just as I was in that wheelchair, because he said the biggest part of his life that he wanted to commit to was me. I thought that was just everything.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And he's been committed to you for how many years now?
Coming this October, it'll be 18 years.
Wow. And they have a lovely daughter as well. So, you know, the communication piece. I typically share with ladies that if you're dating with a disability and your disability is not visible, please make sure you express it within the first 3 days or even with your first three communications. Don't hold it out. Don't do that. Because Sonia's already told you about the vulnerability and how it builds trust. Because if you hold it out and you don't express it, and you also have to be vulnerable enough to even explain it if you have to be detailed. You can't say, "Oh, I don't have time for explaining all of this." You really need to do that, and you need to do that early in the relationship, and just be prepared for whatever the result is, and just move on. And you can have conversations also in your communication. You have conversations like other people. What is your favorite this? What is your favorite that? Where do you like to go? What do you like to do? Just have a conversation and get to know each other and know what each other likes, and you will be surprised some of the things that you have in common. So, Sonia, in closing, what would you like to tell us today?
A lot of times when we have discussions like this, it's so blanketed in so many ways, but to really be transparent is something that I love. And I think one thing that I'll tell people is that don't make this a lack of, or your partner cannot read your mind, because that's one of the things that will hurt you emotionally or physically, is when that person is constantly trying to read your mind. I will say one thing that is a little different from what April says. I don't believe that you have to be fully transparent in 3 days. I feel that you have to be fully transparent when you see that your relationship is going to a level where you know you're going to be going on more dates, or you're going to be committed in this space, because everyone is not privy to your information, but that person who you see as a possible long-term relationship, yes, you need to be transparent with. You need to be open with that point in that place. So I would say that it doesn't have to be the first thing on the table, unless you just say, look, if you come rolling in like me in a wheelchair, hey, you already see what's going on.
Mhm.
And if you can't handle it, tell me now so I can enjoy my dinner by myself.
Yes, that's the key. That's the key. That's the key. Well, I look forward to us having more conversations on this topic because it is a big, wide topic. Remember, we have Ask the Loveologist back. And if you have questions about dating with a disability, that is a great place for you to submit your questions. Also, if you are, um, also go ahead and like, subscribe. Make sure you stay tuned because we will continue to have what other people consider to be difficult conversations. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in the private Lovebird Lounge, where we're going to be discussing some of these topics that you are sending in to Ask the Loveologist. But you'll be able to find the link to Ask the Loveologist right in the comments, as well as the link to the private Lovebird Lounge waitlist. I'm looking forward to meeting you. I'm April, your favorite loveologist, the president and CEO at Authentic Love, where interracial relationships are our #1 priority. Bye-bye now.
Ask the loveologist. Ask the loveologist. Got a love question on your mind? Ask the loveologist. Race and culture, faith and fear. Dating after all these years. No question too hard, no shame over here. Ask the loveologist. Ask the loveologist. Ask the loveologist. With girlfriend warmth and grandmother wisdom, she'll help you see it clear.